Picture yourself walking through a village in the south of France. The houses are stone. Thick, sun-warmed limestone, laid by hand, standing exactly where they've stood for 400 years. Some of them are older than the United States. Now, picture a brand new subdivision outside Dallas. Wood frames wrapped in vinyl, snapped together in a few weeks, designed to be paid off before they fall apart. Two houses, one built to outlast a dozen generations, the other built to outlast a mortgage. And here's the strange part. America has more than enough stone to build the first kind. It always did. So why did we choose the second? It happened fast. It happened on purpose. And it started with one man in Chicago and a building method people thought was a joke. Go back to the beginning. When the first colonists arrived, they came from a Europe that had already run out of trees. England had cut its forests for centuries. A single warship swallowed 2,000 oaks. So when those settlers stepped onto a continent covered in forest from the Atlantic to the Great Plains, they didn't see scenery. They saw free material. The head of the U.S. Forest Service later summed up the whole attitude in one line. The thing to do with the forest was to get rid of it. So they built in wood. Not because stone was unavailable. New England farmers were pulling so much stone out of their own fields, they stacked it into thousands of miles of walls just to be rid of it. The stone was right there. It was literally in the way. They built in wood because wood was everywhere, and it was fast. For 200 years, that was just how America built. Then, in 1832, in a muddy boomtown called Chicago, a lumber dealer named George Washington Snow did something that changed every house you've ever lived in. He threw out the old way of building, the heavy timber beams, the hand-cut joints. The crew of 20 men needed to raise a single wall. Instead, he nailed together thin, light sticks of milled lumber into a skeleton one or two men could put up in days. People mocked it. They called it balloon framing because they were sure the first stiff wind would carry it away like a balloon. It didn't blow away. It took over. Because two other things arrived at exactly the same moment. Machine-cut nails got cheap. Machine-milled lumber got cheap. And suddenly, you didn't need a skilled mason or a master carpenter to build a house. You needed a hammer and a delivery of 2x4s. Chicago went from 300 people to nearly 1 million in 60 years, and it built itself almost entirely out of these light wooden frames. They even had a name for it: Chicago construction. Now here's where it becomes a one-way door. Once the whole country learned to build this way, everything organized itself around it. The factories milled for it. The codes were written for it. The workers were trained for it. Stone needs a mason, and a mason needs years. An apprenticeship, a trade passed down, hands that learn the feel of it. Wood needs a crew you can hire on Monday. So the masons faded, the apprenticeships closed, and the knowledge quietly walked out the door. A skill that took centuries to build up disappeared in a couple of generations, and almost nobody noticed it going. By the time soldiers came home in 1947, and William Levitt started stamping out 12 houses a day on a Long Island potato field, the question wasn't even on the table anymore. Nobody chose wood over stone. The choice had already been made decades earlier and forgotten. And here's the detail that changes how you'll see every stone house you ever drive past. Most of them aren't stone. They're wood frames, wearing a stone costume, a thin facing of cultured stone or veneer, glued and tied to the outside of a stick wall. Sometimes it's barely an inch thick. Tap it, and it sounds hollow, because it is. If you peeled it off, the house would stand exactly the same. The stone is holding up nothing. It's a photograph of permanence stapled onto something temporary. Meanwhile, across the ocean, they kept doing it the old way, partly because they had no choice. Europe ran out of wood, so it built in stone, and those thick walls were designed to last around 400 years. Clay roofs good for another 50. Walls so dense they hold their own temperature through a summer afternoon and a winter night without much help. Houses that get passed down instead of sold off. The same address holding a family for generations. The same stone darkened by 300 years of weather. We look at those villages and call them charming. They're not charming. They're just old in a way our houses will never get the chance to be. None of this means wood is bad. It flexes in an earthquake where stone cracks. It's lighter, cheaper, renewable. Some of the most beautiful old buildings on Earth are timber. The honest truth isn't that we picked the wrong material. It's that we built a culture around speed and disposability. The house as a product with an expiration date, while Europe, by accident of history, built a culture of permanence. Same purpose, opposite values. So the stone never left. It's still in the hills, still in the fields, still under your feet. We didn't stop building with it because it stopped working. We stopped because in one fast century, we decided that lasting 400 years simply wasn't worth the time. Maybe the real question isn't why we stopped building in stone. Maybe it's why we're still fine with houses built to expire. If this got under your skin, there's a video right here on what really killed the American brick house. The same story with a different victim.